Hey guys, it's Ash here with WatchMojo, and these are the top 20 bloodiest anime.
The school is a place that is very close to death, especially the 9th grade's class 3. It's much, much closer to it than the other class.
For this list, we're going to be looking at the goriest series the medium has to offer. YouTube is going to have a field day with this one. Let us know in the comments which of these had your stomachs churning. And if there's another anime list you want to see, go to my Twitter at AshJBo and let me know. Number 20, Blood Plus. With a name like this, it's only natural that this series more than delivers on carnage and splattery set pieces. It follows an amnesiac named Seiya on the quest to recover her identity, though that takes a bit of a back seat when blood-drinking chiropterans begin causing mayhem across the planet. Thankfully, even if Seiya doesn't know who she is, the one thing she did retain was how to slice and dice with her katana. That, plus her special blood that kills chiropterans, means she has a habit of leaving monster remains in her wake. Number 19, Another. Making new friends is tough enough, even without a lethal kiss, seriously limiting your options. The show doesn't hold back the gore as Koichi's social circle shrinks in increasingly gruesome ways, and naturally, not many people want to befriend someone whose weekend plans are booked with funerals. It seems he'll have to settle for a lackluster social life, since his attempts at exercising the kiss only cause his more skittish companions to pick up a knife. Apparently, the only way to make it to the weekend is to avoid stairs, motorboats, each other, and everything in between. To be fair, nobody ever said friendship was easy. Number 18, Claymore. It may take place in a world nearly overrun by man-eating beasts, but this show is just as full with Yoma guts as anything else. This is mainly courtesy of Claire, a human-Yoma hybrid who makes a living showing monsters the pointy end of her signature claymore. For free, of course. The Yoma possess increased strength and shape-shifting abilities, but it doesn't end up doing them much good when Claire has access to the same. The only thing scarier than her prowess with a two-handed sword is that, since she's ranked the weakest of all the claymores, there's 46 others out there with an even bloodier track record. Number 17, Corpse Party. At this shindig, there's no dance floor, attendance is mandatory, and the other guests are to die for. Adapted from the infamous survival horror game series, this pair of OVAs stick to the formula of their source material, namely throwing characters into spooky settings and picking them off in astonishingly brutal fashion. After the shocking first entry proved no one is safe from the horror, the sequel upped the ante with enough carnage to paint the walls red, and not with paint. There aren't many guests left alive at the end of this party, and the ones that are in desperate need of a shower. Number 16, Blue Gender. Beneath the slick sci-fi exterior of these mechs lies a surprisingly vicious amount of graphic violence. It's not wholly unexpected from a series about aliens that harvest people for food, but the insectoid Blue aren't even the biggest offender of the bloodshed. Instead, that honor goes to humanity's robotic retaliation, which tends to turn the invaders crimson before they go down for good.
Yeah, I got something for you. Come and get it!
The show certainly doesn't try to obscure this fact, and will even linger on lengthy close-ups of the aliens' innards for good measure. They may be fighting for society's survival, but it often feels like these mechs are trying to dissect the Blue instead of defeat them. Number 15, Baki franchise. Compared to psychotic murderers, ancient curses, and bloodthirsty aliens, martial arts may not seem all that dangerous. But rest assured, most fighters in this shonen leave the ring drenched in more than just sweat. Baki may know how to throw a good right hook, but surpassing his legendary father is easier said than done when these no-holds-barred matches occasionally have lethal outcomes. With more than just pride on the line, nearly every single match in the series ends with someone in need of a transfusion. Despite this, Baki's been roughing up underground rings for the better part of 25 years. And with each new animated iteration, his knuckles seem to only get bloodier. Number 14, Gantz. As early as the series' opening decapitory minutes, it's clear that this is gonna be a violent ride. It achieves that promise through the mysterious Gantz, which offers a second chance at life for anyone who kills enough aliens.
You big green bag of shit! Come on, bring it on!
However, there are a few notable caveats. If the players abandon their mission, they die. If they fail to eliminate their target, they die. If they even talk about Gantz, they die. You get the point. The aliens usually go down easy enough, but disobeying players are treated to an exploding head. We can't decide what's worse, having your mind implode or being left with the cleanup.
I said get laid. That's what I need. And you said you'd help me, right?
Oh, come on! Are you out of your mind?
Number 13, Deadman Wonderland. When Gunter is framed for a murder spree he didn't commit, he's sentenced to a prison that adds new meaning to the idea of a life sentence. Cruel and unusual punishment doesn't even scratch the surface of a jail-turned amusement park, where the inmates are the main attraction. And yet, the pernicious games of life and death aren't even the full extent of this show's gory mayhem. Gunter and the others have learned to manipulate their own blood to give them a scarlet-colored edge in battle. It's hard to get messier than a fight where bleeding is both the outcome and the weapon of choice. Number 12, Elfenlied. There's a deep and haunting tale about innocence, humanity, and prejudice here. It just also happens to be gory enough to warrant a power wash. Lucy is your average teenage girl, except she has horns, was raised in a lab, and has lethal telekinetic arms called vectors. To say she knows how to use them would be a massive understatement. The series doubles down on the disturbing reality of Lucy's psychotic rampages, dismembering bodies and all. But that's the point. Elfenlied masterfully uses hyper-violence as its own character, and that kind of novel creativity cements Lucy's vengeful adventures as a rather violent gem. Or in this case, a blood ruby.
Don't worry, I don't plan to let you suffer much longer.
Number 11, Shiki. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but the same could be said about getting rid of vampiric demons.
Whatever it is, I'm not gonna let it kill my village.
There's no real limit to the extent of self-defense in a life and death situation, but these villagers certainly went the extra mile in taking their home back from the murderous Shiki. Even to former friends and family, anyone who had turned was given a stake to the chest, or worse.
農薬を注射してみる。
Messy? Absolutely, but it's hard not to be a little impressed at their lack of hesitation, even if they easily go overboard by the time everything's up in flames. Number 10, Parasite the Maxim. Everyone makes mistakes, and when an attempted body snatching goes wrong, the parasitic Migi is left only in control of the host's right arm. It's great news for the teenage Shinichi, but retaining most of his motor functions also comes with a moral obligation to fight against the invading aliens. Predictably, ripping out alien organs isn't a very clean process, especially since Shinichi's up against creatures that aren't willing to go down quietly. His heroism is a bit barbaric, but he's still single-handedly lowering the average body counts of infected hosts.
動かない方がいい。動くと余計痛い。
Number 9, Ninja Scroll. One mercenary, 8 ninjas, and plenty of grisly fights. This is how you make a classic anime flick. The straightforward story is really just an excuse to set up a series of epic brawls between Junpei and several supernatural shinobi. But that's okay when the combat is as spectacular as it is here. Each combatant has a unique magical gimmick, but the film grounds the flurries with sudden and visceral splashes of violence. In the face of mystical arts, Junpei sending each competitor to a grossly indulgent demise is all the more satisfying. It may sound wrong, but watching a sword impale a skull has never felt so right. Number 8, Tokyo Ghoul. Kaneki may be doing all he can to substitute from eating humans since becoming a ghoul hybrid, but that clearly wasn't enough to slake this series' hunger for bloodshed. Eating habits aside, the series continually dives into even more gruesome depths with horrid murders or lengthy torture scenes. It's downright disturbing and a little remarkable, as body horror and excessive gore permeates even the climactic action sequences. At this point, it's not the violence that's surprising, it's that Kaneki's managed to keep his new white hair from getting tinged red. Number 7, High School of the Dead. Even though there's no laundry in the apocalypse, these stranded students have no qualms staining their clothes if it means bludgeoning a few more undead adversaries. After zombies break out in, you guessed it, a high school, various busty and resourceful students become a walking endorsement for survival of the fittest. When the series' scope grows beyond the school grounds, so does the body count. Just goes to show that fan service, guts, and an abundance of undead all go hand in hand. Number 6, Attack on Titan. The Titans are a vicious and ever-present threat to humanity, and nearly every episode reminds audiences that they'd happily eat the entirety of Paradise for dinner if given the choice. It seems there's no end to the horrifying and painful deaths that befall the Survey Corps here, but in a small glimmer of retribution, Titans aren't wholly safe from the same kind of shocking bloodshed. Whether it's being eaten alive, smushed in their grip, or simply trampled into dirt, there doesn't seem to be a way for humans or Titans to escape the cycle of death, at least until Eren. Number 5. Genocyber. As a general rule of thumb, you should never create an all-powerful bioweapon without an off switch. Driven only by the impulses of two young girls, the unbeatable Genocyber carves an indiscriminately bloody path through the once peaceful Earth. The sadistic spectacle features some of the most graphic imagery and animation, even by today's standards. It doesn't help that half the carnage comes from the trigger-happy response of a society looking for a reason to shoot. The overwhelming nihilistic approach and utter lack of restraint make for a shocking, war-torn series of OVAs where nothing is off limits. Number 4. Higurashi When They Cry franchise. Even the most tortured characters eventually find mercy in death, but these guys don't have that luxury. That's not to say this visual novel adaptation has no killing, quite the opposite actually. When the main cast inevitably meets their twisted fate at the end of each arc, the timeline resets and picks them off all over again in more creatively demented ways. Their deaths are never quick and never painless, which makes it hurt even more when they spontaneously return, only to face more untold horrors. It's not pleasant, but it is eerily entrancing. Number 3. Hellsing Ultimate. Vampires can't survive without blood, and neither can this gruesome fright fest. The franchise's identity was already soaked in red before, but this OVA series upped the ultra-violent action up to 11, especially in regard to the original bloodsucker himself.
Silence! I'm a dog. Then you're dog food.
Alucard's allegiance to the Hellsing family thankfully hasn't quelled his appetite for tearing into necks, which comes in handy against legions of supernatural forces. There's been gory anime before, but few have come close to the pure scale of seeing entire armies reduced to splatters on the sidewalk. And that's just how Alucard rolls.
It takes a man in order to kill a monster.
Number 2. Berserk. It's fitting that a mercenary named Guts is intimately familiar with the actual stuff. There's not many conflicts in this mini masterpiece that don't end with someone's insides suddenly on the outside. The series wasn't shy about showing the grisly consequences of battle, but the macabre events of the eclipse make it all look like child's play. The iconic sequence graphically depicts most of the main cast turning into puddles of loose limbs and dismembered organs at the hands of the apostles.
He tries so hard, that one.
The only thing more vibrant than the blood splatter is Guts' constant struggle against a world set on crushing him. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Devilman Crybaby. It takes serious skill to turn an already conventionally grim manga into one of the most hyper-violent shows ever made. Uninhibited by editorial oversight or demographical concerns, the creators of this Devilman reimagining shattered the industry's gory limits with unflinchingly brutal savagery. The series drowned itself in an ocean of uncensored bloodshed, but never sank too far to lose sight of its intimate tale about Akira and Ryo's quarrel for humanity's fate. It's a serious contender for one of the most graphic anime ever produced, but for those with stomachs of steel, this red-stained story is a bloody good time. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.